Good evening, everyone. I'm Ed Goodman. I'm chairman of the board of the Andrew Goodman Foundation, and I'm delighted to welcome you all here. We're very gratified at the number of people who've elected to attend this meeting, including many friends, some of whom I haven't seen in years. It's really quite a thrill. I'd like to introduce you very briefly to my co-hosts and fellow board members. Janet Deward-Bell, Dale Berger, Lola Brown, Thorne Buffalo, Sylvia Goodman, David Goodman, Fred Farku, Ross Garin, Barbarina Heyerdahl, Charles Immerhuizen, Edward Lowenthal, Rob Masters, Jonian Rafty, Valencia Richardson, Amy Solis, and Andrea McAvoy Spiro, and Corey Weiss, all of whom have worked hard to make this event possible and work hard throughout the year to drive the foundation forward. Also on the associate board and key to tonight's success, Erin Capone and Anna Leonard. So why am I interested in the Andrew Goodman Foundation? First of all, I can claim no blood kinship to the Goodman family. But it happens that in another life, in an earlier chapter, I worked with Andrew Goodman's mother, Carolyn Goodman, on another philanthropic enterprise. That is a story too lengthy to tell tonight. But that was the late 60s when I first met the Goodmans. And they were then and they remain committed to bettering our society and various social missions. I would say up to about 6 or 7 years ago, David Goodman may differ, the Andrew Goodman Foundation was a family-driven, entrepreneurial, worthy but small enterprise. And David and Sylvia realized that to have an impact and meet the great challenges that face us, it had to grow. So they began to build the board, raise money, hire staff, and make it a truly bigger organization with a bigger impact. About 6 years ago, I was attracted to their work and their mission, and I joined the board. And then, as I like to say, in a hotly contested election, I was elected chair. And I've enjoyed that role. It's challenging, it's exciting, it's wonderful to work with all the people that are so energized. As the film said, and in part stole my thunder, and Maxim eloquently said, this is an unprecedented time when we're faced with a healthcare pandemic, arguably a political pandemic, a great schism in our culture, the Voting Rights Act of '65 having been eviscerated by a Supreme Court decision of 2014. And that is emblematic of a broad array of attacks on voter participation, which disproportionately affects young people and people of color. So the Andrew Goodman Foundation is in the business of trying to combat voter suppression, expand the franchise, and realize our shared desire for a more perfect union. With that, I'd like to pass the gavel to Dale Berger, my co-host and fellow board member.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad that you all could join us. This is a amazing group we are all so interested in participating in trying to help the students vote. I joined the board about 2 years ago. Max and I were very concerned about the lack of student voting and the amount of students that could vote and didn't vote. We know that students are notorious for not voting, but there have been many impediments to their voting, and we wanted to get involved with something. So we spoke to Michael Brennan, of the, I'm sorry, Michael Wallman of the Brennan Institute for Voting Rights. And he led us to Ed and to David Goodman, and we met with them in Max's office. We met with Maxim and David in his office, and we were very intrigued by the organization. They were growing, they were learning how to use technology, and we felt that this was an important thing for us, since we care so much about voting as the only way we really can address our democracy and keep it. I think that everybody has said what I was going to say. I just want to say to thank you. I hope you have your wine, martini, and anything else that you might drink, because we are here to learn about and celebrate the great work of the Andrew Goodman Foundation, what they've done and what they will do in the future. Close.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alexandria Harris, and I'm the Executive Director of the Andrew Goodman Foundation. I want to just start by saying something that I didn't intend to say tonight. In fact, I'm going to go completely off the cuff because I think it's that important of a time. The Andrew Goodman Foundation is nonpartisan, absolutely nonpartisan. The work that we do driving voting outcomes on college campuses across this nation is nonpartisan. We do not endorse any political person. But I also want to say that I am American. I trace my lineage back to my great-great-grandparents who were enslaved in Lynchburg, Virginia. And we have in our blood the original settlers of America, both white and Native American. And so I know that, like many of you on this call, you're concerned about our democracy, and that the unveiled threats and calls for violence in the debate yesterday concern you, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, because we're all very concerned about our country right now. The good thing about the Andrew Goodman Foundation is that we're on campus all year round. We don't swoop in right before an election. We're there to help the students figure out voting outcomes on their campuses, but we're also there, like very recently, when our students are calling us because the KKK is storming through their campus and shouting racial slurs. We're there when the students are calling us and saying, there's been a COVID outbreak in our dorm and we're being sent back home. We don't know what to do. We don't know where to vote. We don't know how to mobilize our peers. We're there for all the things that you're going to hear tonight about the innovations that we're working on, and we'll be there no matter what the outcome is in November. We'll be there to help the students figure out what's next. And what's really important, because of our lineage, because of Andrew Goodman's story and what he experienced in Freedom Summer, we know how to mobilize students, to organize students, to keep them safe and accounted for, no matter what happens. So if ever there was a time for you to dig deep and figure out, how can I be involved? How can I be engaged? What can I do? This is your time. Think about the college student in your life. Think about their confusion about where they should vote. Think about their just waning faith in our democracy. This is your moment to really make a change. So thank you for being here tonight.
Each day I live, I want to be a day to give the best of me. I'm only one, but not alone. My finest day is yet unknown. I broke my heart, fought every game to taste the sweet. I face the pain, I rise and fall, yet through it all, this much remains. I want one moment in time when I'm more than I thought I could be. When all of my dreams are a heartbeat away, and the answers are all up to me. Give me one moment in time, when I'm racing with destiny. Then in that one moment of time, I will feel eternity.
Thank you, Jarvis. Jarvis joined us this year in the midst of the pandemic. Very similar to a lot of our staff. Jarvis is from Mississippi, but now lives in Washington, D.C. And a lot of the work that he does as a program manager focuses on students of color and students at historically Black colleges and universities. We're really proud of this talent that we've attracted to the Andrew Goodman Foundation. And you guys should know Alex Harris, the executive director, is a graduate of Spelman and Harvard, which is the perfect combination in my mind. This moment that Alex spoke of and the moment to which Jarvis just sang is like nothing else. I want to put this in perspective because we are fortunate to have such a multi-generational group of loyal supporters and activists. For people who lived through the Second World War or the Vietnam War, where you could be drafted, you knew that you or your son or your dad could die in the war. If you were a different generation and you lived through AIDS, you knew that you, your friend, your college friend, your son, grandson could die at any moment. And now we have the pandemic. Again, where you could die, a lot of us, especially if you have pre-existing conditions and if you're Black or brown at any moment. So that's the moment that young people are coming of age. For a lot of the people and folks that we work with, first time that they're going to vote is a moment like this. But we can relate to it if you're of a certain age of any generation of what this must be like. But here's the landscape. Here's the landscape. We have 20 million students in college. The national voting average for college students, however, is 40.3. That's how many students voted in 2018. I got that number from Nancy Thomas. Nancy is on this call. Nancy is brilliant at Tufts University. And I've called her out because of the research that we invest in to make the decisions that you're going to hear about of how we pivoted and how we're carefully crafting the strategy that we're asking you to invest in. So if 20 million students, that means 8 million students voted and 12 million students did not. When you think of the margins, think of 12 million students sitting there that could have changed the outcome of any number of elections, down ballot or presidential. So the three viruses that we talked about, COVID-19, voter suppression, and systemic racism. For Black people, it's like from 1619 to COVID-19. So that's the kind of conversation that young people are having. And one other statistic I want to share with you of why you're going to hear about students of color. Students of color haven't voted at the rates they voted in 2008 and 2012, since 2008 and 2012. And even though lots more students voted in 2018, they haven't reached the levels of passion that they did in those periods that I talked about. We're trying to get them there. So we're focusing on 9 battleground states. We're in 26 states in Washington, D.C., but we're focusing on 9 for the purposes of this conversation, folks. Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Wisconsin. And you're going to hear what we think is a model of the investment that we're making in Wisconsin. Serious investment a lot of talent. And I want you to hear from our state organizer, Cecelia McDermott, who's a student at the University of Wisconsin as well. And hear what we're doing to ensure that we're helping students cure any mistakes on their ballots, which we call the Voter Verification Project, what we're doing to turn out students and prepare them for all the challenges they will have so they can vote safely in Wisconsin and in the other 8 battleground states. Cecelia.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Cecelia McDermott, and I am a Wisconsin organizer with the Andrew Goodman Foundation. I am also a student. I go to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I'm studying political science and geography with certificates in public policy and digital studies. I joined AGF really at the perfect time. I have been thinking about taking a semester off for organizing since I first got involved in 2016. So I had this vision in my head for 4 years where the fall of 2020 would be solely dedicated to this election and turning out student voters. But over the summer, I realized if I took the semester off, I would lose the scholarship that allows me to go to college. So the AGF organizer position really was perfect because I am able to focus on what I love, youth voter engagement, while remaining an active student. And also the Andrew Goodman story just really resonated with me since Andrew Goodman did go to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I am 20 right now. This is like my final summer before my last year in college. And I am just really excited to be working in my home state with an organization like AGF. So right now, AGF is launching a huge wave of expansion in Wisconsin and really devoting a lot of our time and effort to making sure students across the state are supported not only in this election, but moving forward into future elections as well. So right now, one of the things I am doing is leading a Wisconsin campus voting coalition with our other partners, and we are able to reach 48 out of the 52 campuses in the state. We also have campus level coalitions such as the Badgers Vote Coalition, where our ambassador teams are doing the same thing on a campus level. We are also launching a new project in Wisconsin across our campuses. So for a little context first, in April, our election in Wisconsin was a total mess. It was March of this year, and students on campus found out that they needed to leave immediately. They were confused. They weren't sure if they were going to be able to come back to their dorms or if they would be leaving permanently for the semester. And this was right ahead of our April election. So when students are already panicked on a short time frame and might have to pack up all of their things in the matter of a few days, the last thing they're thinking about is going to the union to get a student voter ID card, which is something you need to vote in Wisconsin if you aren't a Wisconsin resident with a driver's license. And meeting this challenge with the challenges of voting in a pandemic, our election was not postponed or canceled. So there was also the great threat to students of having to go vote in person or by mail. And for students like me with pre-existing health conditions, voting in person is just not an option. So this is a little context to where this project is coming from. And to further illustrate the need for this program, the margin of victory in Wisconsin in 2016 was 22,748 votes. That is less than the number of vote by mail ballots that were thrown out during the 2020 Wisconsin primaries in April, which was 23,196. And that is why we are launching a vote by mail verification process. We need to make sure the ballots that are submitted are counting. So we are launching this initiative led by Chief Counsel Yael Bromberg and working with our campus teams and local clerks' offices to verify that student ballots are being counted. Generally, there's about 3 issues with ballots. all of which are pretty easy to fix to make sure your ballot is counting. You either forgot your signature, your witness signature, or your witness's address. And these are all things that we can do and help students with to make sure that their votes do count. Because in Wisconsin, there are so many challenges just to receive your ballot. So we need to make sure when you've gone through all of those hoops and barriers that your vote is counted. So we talked with our local clerk's office and talked through this project, and they have agreed to send us a list every week with the students whose ballots were rejected. And then our AGF teams will be reaching out to those student voters and letting them know their ballot was rejected and here's how they can fix it. And the clerk's office was super excited about this project and really supportive. And they haven't seen any other organization in this country working on this project. AGF is really paving the way on this initiative. And last week, we launched this project across Wisconsin, and we are now scaling that out across the US in battleground states where we have friendly relationships with our clerk's offices. And this project will also be a launching pad for litigation when we encounter clerks who are not cooperative, as well as a data tool to inform students when they've been stricken from voter registries. This project is just one of many we're working on in Wisconsin, focused on engaging our Wisconsin students. In 2020, we will turn out Wisconsin student voters. So go Badgers, vote.
Thank you, Maxim, and thank you everyone for your interest in student voting, because it's important to students everywhere, especially, as Maxim said, historically Black colleges and universities. And those are universities that were, that created opportunities for higher education for students of color, Black students in particular, before they were accepted at other institutions. And so typically before the Civil Rights Act, those institutions helped to educate and advance individuals and to really kind of make America more reflective. And after the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and even the fact that, you know, the African American community is being hit by COVID 3 to 1 in terms of deaths, the historically Black colleges and universities have been having challenges, or had challenges, and reached out about how do they focus not just on keeping their campuses, you know, together, but really how do they help their students to be able to vote in the midst of everything that's going on. And with the student morale and those challenges, one of the things that we did was we hosted the very first National HBCU Voting Summit. And this voting summit brought together HBCUs from all around the country, and it was the first of its kind, from around the country to actually plan how to be able to re-energize students, how to be able to get students motivated, to educate them, but also in places, especially most of these schools are located in the South, how to get past some of the barriers to access as quickly as possible. We know that these campuses don't just represent their campuses, they represent the entire community. Most of these institutions are located in Black communities and are counted and participate in the overall numbers for voting. And so with this gathering, we were able to identify 21 campuses that we're excited we'll be bringing on for 1 year period as an emergency COVID cohort, where we've offered $1,000 for an activity grant, and they need it too, because not only do they have to figure out different ways of printing, of preparing ballots, of paying for mail, but also busing the students to the polling locations, because many of them have closed and many of them can't be on campus because of the limited polling options that are available. And so we've offered support, program support, as well as access to the My Vote Everywhere and texting tools, which is very essential right now so that the campuses can share the information with students. And so as an extension of this commitment, we hope to bring these campuses in after June of this year for the fall of next year as partner campuses, and to continue to help build and strengthen those foundations of their infrastructure for elections on their campuses. And Black students will matter. for this election.
We certainly plan to make that happen. Christina, you are a blessing to us, to Texas, to Houston, and to everyone who cares about democracy and everyone having a equal say, one person, one vote in our country.
Can I jump in for 1 second, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. This is Robert. As a former civil rights worker back in the 60s, I just want to make sure people remember the historic role that the HBCUs played, from Fisk University in Nashville, Tougaloo College in Mississippi, North Carolina A&M with the first sit-ins, Howard University, Stokely Carmichael, for instance, Morehouse in Georgia. So they're extremely important, and they have a real legacy that we shouldn't forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. So Bob and Carla, we appreciate you and serving on your board, but also the commitment you have had to voting rights, civil rights, and social justice for decades. What Bob didn't mention is that he traveled with Andy back in 1964 to learn to do what they were supposed to do in Mississippi. They were trained together at Miami University in Ohio. And Ohio, we're in Ohio, and you're going to learn a little bit about that later today. We are trying to turn out students of color. You've heard about our battleground state strategy, where the margins are so thin that when you think about them, when you think about 11,000 votes in Michigan, and you think about less than 23,000 votes in Wisconsin, that's like one of our campuses. And when you think about how many student votes were left on the table, think about what a difference it would be to have student issues take the fore if we got them to turn out and vote. So battleground state, you've also heard about how we're curing ballots from Cecelia. And you've heard about students of color from Christina, right? And you've heard about texting and our customized student voter portal. Those two innovations we're on the forefront of. I'm going to spend a lot of time later this evening talking to you about that. But with those innovations, we think if you know any young people, folks, any millennial or Gen X, if you want to talk to them, you text them. You don't call them. They never pick up the phone. They never pick up the phone, and they never use the phone, but they text. So we're going to be texting. So that's our strategy to get people out to vote on college campuses, whether they're on the campus or at home. But what Alex is going to tell you about is how we are going to study what we're doing and take it to another level. Alex.
Thanks, Maxim. So Maxim's 100% right. When I got to the Andrew Goodman Foundation in March of this year, I was pretty shocked by the fact that AGF was just like its peer organizations, and we didn't have a lot of data to back up how we know that we make an impact on college campuses. How much is it cost per voter to take a student from, I'm kind of interested to I'm a lifelong voter? And how do we know that all of the work that we do is really making a difference and moving the needle? And I found out pretty quickly that nobody does in our space, that it's completely anecdotal. And I was pretty upset. As a social entrepreneur, we got together and thought, how can we come up with a solution to kind of address this? And we knew that if we wanted to make any kind of difference, we had to partner with the absolute queen of data in this space, Nancy Thomas, who we've referenced before, who is on this call. She is brilliant, and she is the founder of the Institute for Democracy in Higher Education, which is referred to as IDHE. And so we sat down with Nancy and really, really came up with what we think is absolutely game-changing for this space. So we've invented what is called the Democracy Lab. And so we will be inviting 36 college campuses to join this cohort. And in order for them to participate, we'll also be providing financial incentive, which means a lot for HBCUs, as Christine has already pointed out. So they'll receive support for their ambassadors. They'll receive support for the faculty that participate. And then the school itself will receive financial support. But programmatically, and this is where we really think we're making the biggest difference, these schools will be in a cohort for 2 years, meeting weekly with a specialist in one of the 4 areas that I'll just outline. So civics education, voter registration, getting out the vote, and advocacy. So weekly, these schools will come to the table and bring their challenges and bring their struggles, and then they'll thought partner with each other. And all the while, with all of the genius, qualitative and quantitative analysis of IDHE, we'll be studying best practices that emerge. We'll be seeing what really moves the needle on campuses. We'll see the impact of race, of gender, of geography, of socioeconomics, of polling sites, of early voting, of all these things that we know and do all the time on our AGF campuses that we really want to be able to study. And so here's the rub. This is what gets me so excited as my little, in the nerdiness of me. What we'll be able to do at the end of it is produce a report that we'll share among the space with all of our peer organizations that shows everybody, this is what you do. This is how you move the needle on a campus. This is how you engage students that are disillusioned. This is how you do all the things that you want to do, targeting HBCUs. And we'll be able to raise the bar among all of our peer organizations and how we organize and how we interact with college campuses forever. We want to do this for the space. We think it's time. And we really hope that you'll join us in this movement.
Lots of things going on. I know you have lots of concerns. And we're here, Alex, myself, and all of the staff, to hear what's on your mind. What's bothering you? What do you think about the civil unrest that's happening? I put in the chat room one of the most startling statistics that our communication director uncovered recently, Justina. So I'll read it for you. The number of mail-in ballots that were rejected during 2020 primaries in Wisconsin, right? The number was 23,194. It was almost exactly the same number that the current president won Wisconsin by in 2016. The number of ballots rejected in the primaries this year in Wisconsin is the same margin of victory for Wisconsin in 2016. So our ballot cure strategy in Wisconsin and the 8th state is so important so that those votes aren't lost for young people. And by the way, young people, disproportionate to any other group, get their ballots invalidated when we are doing vote by mail. Here is the map, and I'll just give some brief pointers before Rachel does what she promised to do. You will see the footprint, 26 states in Washington, D.C. And you will see in teal the battleground states that I mentioned, the 9 battleground states that we think can make all the difference so that students' votes and voices will matter in this election. You will see what the student reach will be. 764,657. That's how many students we think we will reach in our battleground strategy. And just take a look, folks, at the last column. That is the margin of victory in 2016 for the presidential election. Some of the other elections that year, like for Senate, or for governor, or for congressperson, were even tighter. This map is driving a lot of our work because of when students say, my votes don't matter, we show them how little they're wrong, how wrong they are, because their votes matter so disproportionately when margins are thin. Voter verification securing ballots in the vote by mail era that we're all living in. So important, especially the battleground states and the texting. So it's really important that you understand how this breaks down for us. Right? We need a next slide, please. We need you to really help us. And I want to take this moment to thank the 48 donations that have come in already for tonight's program. That is helping us reach the revenue that we need to support these students in these battleground states. It is so absolutely important. And I just want to mention, like Sue and Julie and Misty and Jay and Laurie, every little bit helps. And Alvin, thank you. Evelyn, thank you so much. But absolutely our hosts, Ed and Lorna, Dale and Max, Andre and Jason, Ben and Leah, Amy and Richard, Barbara, Rena, and so forth, Barbara and Luis. Thank you so much. Every bit helps us to deliver on what we have talked about. And I'll tell you how we're doing it, right? We have to pay. We're trying to get state organizers in every state who can do what Cecelia is doing, who can help the campus ambassadors connect with the clerk's offices to learn who's been removed from the ballot and get them back on the voter roll so that they can vote and have their votes be counted, right? That's what we're trying to do. And when we talk about texting, right, we are trying to purchase $1.2 million cell phone, 1.2 million cell phone numbers, right? All the records in the 9 battleground states. That's 113 colleges and universities. Of that 1.2 million cell phone numbers, 470,000 of them are students who have not registered to vote. Just imagine if we started texting, obviously the 1.2 million, but just those 470 and say, we can help you register to vote in the battleground state that you're in. That's what we're trying to do. And here's how I am asking you to help us do this, right? We need 81 donations of $500. We're on 81 campuses. $500 would help us have signage, digital, and for those that are on campus and in person, signs. It really helps. We want 20 donations of $1,000 that would help us to enhance GeoTV activities of the kind we described. 8 donations of $10,000 will help us purchase the 1.2 million cell phone numbers that I just described. By the way, the reason it's 8, because we've done it for Wisconsin. We would like to do it for the other 8 battleground states, Florida, Ohio, Michigan, Arizona, Pennsylvania, etc. We need 8 donations of $15,000, which would allow us to do the voter verification project in the other 8 states, as Cecelia described we're doing in Wisconsin. We would like you to help us, 6 donations of $25,000, which helps us get the tech infrastructure in 6 of the states that don't have it, so that we can do the texting and the customized voter portal and everything that it needs in those particular battleground states. And then 4 donations of $50,000 for those of you who are able to do it. That helps us with everything that Christina talks about with students of color. Think about turning out students of color in Georgia. Think about turning out students of color in Milwaukee. Think about turning out students of color in Philadelphia. Think about turning out students of color in Miami and Miami-Dade. Just think about the difference that will make. So that's why we have 4 donors we need of $50,000. And then, of course, as you've seen on the previous slide, we are so grateful to Maxim, Berger, right? And we're so grateful to Ed and Lorna Goodman, who've given us $75,000 each towards this effort, this last push, this urgent push before November 3rd. So we need 2 more donations of 75,000, which would allow us to have state organizers in every battleground state. We tried to show you the math and make it affordable or bite-sized for those who can. But that's between now and November. And what we want to really make clear, because a lot of you have said this, we have to start young. We have to start with young people, even before college. We have to make this a permanent process, not cyclical, not like 34 days before the election. This has to be a year-round activity in 2020, 2021, and 2022, and that's what Alex is talking about. And so for the Democracy Lab that you heard Nancy Thomas, the guru on student voter engagement, it is amazing if we learned and shared what we're doing with everyone who is interested in this. We may never be in this crisis again, thank God, because people are doing it better and respecting our democracy and young people's vote. And that's what we need for this in 2020 to lay the framework for the Democracy Lab is on your slide. And in 2021, it cannot stop here. We have to do everything we can to win, have young people's voices win in November. But we also have to plant the seeds so it continues to grow through 2021. And with your help, change is going to come. Stay for the after party, folks, because we're going to go into every question you have. But change is going to come with your help.
Okay, let me.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know the change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know the change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will.
Thank you, Jarvis. We have a donation button in the chat room, and we are willing to meet with each and every one of you privately, over coffee, virtually, like on Zoom, after this meeting and between now and the end of the year and even next year. Thank you all for joining. Okay, so quickly on the legal. In 2018, we were horrified when Florida tried to ban early polling sites from every college campus. And you might find this surprising, but no major organization even thought to take on this case. Our ambassadors had been working on getting a polling site at the University of Florida for years without success. And it was because of her, Megan, that we decided to sue the state of Florida. A lot of people thought it was a long shot because who would use the 26th Amendment, right? I went to law school like some of the people on this call, and I never even heard of the 26th Amendment, Frank, and I'm being honest. And I actually went to a pretty good law school. The 26th Amendment is what lowered the age from 21 to 18. And on that basis, we said, if you're banning early polling sites from college campuses in Florida, you're discriminating against young people in violation of the Constitution and the 26th Amendment of the Constitution. And we won. And then Florida tried to do a runaround recently with this pretext of requiring a certain number of parking permits if you're going to have a polling site, which by the way was to say banning again polling sites from college campuses. Can you imagine if you were in New York City or if you were in Chicago or wherever, having permit parking to allow you to have a polling site? That means no city could have a polling place. So we won. We were able to settle that, and we won. In Tennessee, they tried to criminalize various aspects of voter registration, including requiring you to issue a statement from the state that was about a paragraph long, even if you were sending a text message. So if you were to say to a student by text, remember that the voter registration deadline in Tennessee is October 3rd. You then have to include the following. Please be aware that this text is not authorized by the state of Tennessee, blah, blah, completely undercutting your message. We won that case as well in federal court as a violation of the First Amendment, forcing you to give a message that you don't want to give. If the state wants to give a message, let the state do it. And in Wisconsin, which has the country's most onerous student voter ID law, basically making it impossible for students to vote, we sued. There are a lot of cases that are being sued in Wisconsin. Our case got combined with a number of other cases, but we did win, and the final decisions have not been made yet. But on one sliver, we did win. What the court said was, when you are putting more burdens on this class of people, which are students, than you are putting on any other age group, not retirees, not school teachers, not firemen, you're discriminating against them. And so we got them to remove some of the onerous requirements that they placed on students. So that's an example of the litigation we're doing. And more recently, and very exciting, we've sued in Dutchess County, New York, on behalf of Bard College, with the president of Bard and our student ambassadors. Because imagine, Bard is the largest, densest part of Dutchess County. And there's not a single polling site on that college campus. And students have to walk 3 miles on a dirt road over a highway to be able to vote. In the basement of a building that's not ADA, which means disability compliant. 2 students have been killed on that road. And yet there's no polling site in violation of the law based on density on that campus. So we brought a lawsuit in Dutchess County. People, when they think, oh, voter suppression is only in Mississippi or wherever, it's not true. It's also in Dutchess County, New York. We never thought we'd be doing litigation, but as I said in our room, voter suppression is now an art form, surgical precision to deny students the right to vote, whether it's local county politics or presidential politics. We are seeing people gerrymandering college campuses. So if I am a freshman and I move into this dorm, but next year my dorm is across the street, I might not know that I needed to re-register because that's a different district. I live in New Jersey, right, Patterson. Montclair State is four different districts. Louisiana State University has the same problem. They've also gerrymandered the largest historically Black college and university in the country into 4 different districts. These are the schemes that if you're not watching, you wouldn't know. Even advocates in social justice and voting rights don't know because they're accustomed to what's still happening. Denying Native Americans, denying Latinx, denying low-income Black people, urban communities, we get that.
Dark forces in America have really figured out how to prevent, obviously they figured out how to prevent people from voting. I mean, I can't think of a more extreme practice than the people of the state of Florida passing a law or an amendment that allows ex-felons to vote, which shouldn't have required a vote, and then the legislature saying that, now this is not college campuses, the legislature saying that if any of them have outstanding fines, as most of them do, they still can't vote. So why not other people who have a parking ticket outstanding or are late in paying their taxes or anything like that? It's just really an outrage. So the thing is that, you know, what we're doing is so fundamental to the basic tenets of our Constitution that, and I don't mean to be preachy. I mean, I think because I'm preaching to the choir. I mean, we all basically feel this way, but it's just, you know, insanity that, you know, that we should have to be really sort of fighting these fights in so many states, in so many places. But that's the reality. That's what we have to do. So, so the work we're doing, I'm sure we all know, is so extremely important. But you know, it takes financial resources to do this. I will say, you know, Dale and I became committed to the Andrew Goodman Foundation principally because of the work that they were doing, but also because when we took a look at really what the foundation managed to do with such limited financial resources, it was astounding. It was truly astounding. Okay, and so we said, imagine if they could raise even a reasonable amount of money to really sort of continue their work and expand their work, how significant it would be, what a major impact the foundation could have. And it's just an absolute joy for us to see really sort of how that has, how the organization has expanded its reach, its ability to raise the resources necessary. And, you know, tonight was just thrilling to see on such short notice so many people participating and learning about this incredible foundation. So many people have the misconception that young people, particularly college students, don't vote because they're complacent, they're lazy, they want to party, they don't really care. And I think, you know, some of that really sort of has to do with their, you know, the inadequacy of civics education throughout their, education leading up to college and in college. But what I think very few of us really realize are the extraordinary impediments that are put in the way of college students and young people who actually want to vote. I mean, things as simple as students who are living in a dormitory who could really register to vote and vote in the states in which they are going to college would have to produce, let's say, a utility bill when they don't get utility bills, so they can't get them. States where you could actually register with a picture ID of an expired gun license, but not with a picture ID of an out-of-state driver's license. You know, there are just infinite examples of the inexcusable roadblocks that are put in the way of young people to vote. Maxim gave a number of them, very good ones. Pennsylvania requiring ballots within envelopes that are within envelopes. I mean, what's that all about? If you have affidavits and witnesses, whatever, it's like, it's ridiculous. And how many people are not going to do that? So in any event, I mean, I think we believe so much in the Andrew Goodman Foundation because we believe that really, young people have to be educated and they have to be aware of the importance of voting in this country. It's second nature to us adults, here, but it's not to them. And then I think it's our obligation to try to help them to do it when they want to do it. And that's what this incredible organization is all about.
And I want to add something to that. If you train them now in college, they will be voting the rest of their life. And voting is the only way that we really, us lay people, really have a voice in our democracy. And if we want to maintain our voice and speak out, this is the way we do it. So we are training the future voters. And that's what we have to think about. So it's not just this year. I know, Artie, you were concerned about, up to November 3rd. Yeah, we are concerned. There's no question. You know me, Artie, so I don't have to tell you. But we have to think about our children and our grandchildren and their voting and continue to vote and to speak out. So that's why another reason it's important to train these students and get them civically involved.